Well, while he's doing that, my name is Craig Weiss. I write the eLearning 24/7 blog, and then from there have my own business, which is eLearning 24/7, and basically provides services to buyers and vendors in the e-learning industry, which includes mobile and everything else. And one of my big beliefs is the power of emerging technology when it comes to mobile learning. And I remember way back last year, I was on a presentation and talked about the impact of mobile learning and tablets. And I believed it from the get-go that this was really going to be the biggest impact in mobile learning over smartphones. And I still believe that. The reason of the strength and gain of mobile learning just in this past year, in these few months, several months, has been because of tablets, not smartphones, which have been out for a while. And as a result of that, you are seeing this great capability. And when you're talking about augmented reality, there's certain things that you need to have, which we'll get right in here in a second. And one of these, of course, is dealing with having a camera. So a smartphone that has a camera will work. A tablet that has a camera built into it will work, which includes the new Samsung, the iPad 2, and many of your tablets that are already in the space. It doesn't really matter about operating system. It really just comes to whether or not it has a camera and a few other things. So we're going to jump into augmented reality. And it's interesting because I was just reading an article this morning where Gartner projected augmented reality, hitting its stride 5 to 10 years from now. That's unequivocally false. It is already being seen. It is moving at an enormous pace. And its capabilities, when we talk about it from a learning standpoint, is literally whatever the mind can come up with, as long as well with the technology, because that's really going to be its strength. It's going to be really people that see that capability and possibility, and it's not that you need to have these technical skill sets. There are products available today, and there's continuing development of products and technologies within augmented reality that are going to be going forward. And again, its strength is going to be the tablet space, but right now it's heavily geared towards the smartphones. Chris, can you flip the next slide? Thanks. So, what is it when it comes to augmented reality? And when you think about it, think first and foremost, besides what you read there, is you take your smartphone or you take your tablet, again, it has to have a camera, and you look through the screen. And you see what is happening in real time, real world. And then what the software is able to do is it places on top of it, think of it as a layer, graphics, audio. When I say other sense enhancements, might include sound, with video capabilities in there. Touch-free gesturing is a capability that is in there. And some of the augmented reality capabilities require you to wear glasses. Thankfully, that is not the norm. And because of the technology, I don't see it as being the norm. There's a few that do it, but most people really don't like that capability. And by the way, what is AR.com is not a real website. The rest are. What do you need? Well, you need GPS and geolocation. So your smartphones actually have GPS in there, and they already have geolocation. And what geolocation means is, thanks to GPS, it can pinpoint exactly where you are in the world. At that moment, you're using your smartphone or using your tablet. Tablets have geolocation put into them as well, even the iPad. That's why if you're ever driving around with your iPad or at a store, it can zero right into your location. That's geolocation. And geolocation is also in HTML5, so that's something to think about on the side note. You need to have a mobile device, a smartphone, a tablet, eventually what's called PGB-P, which are your portable game players. It's the third fastest growing mobile device in the market. A lot of people don't realize that. And so that's going to offer an additional capability because you can develop sims, gaming sims, for PGP players. And regardless of your audience, you know, a lot of people think that your audience of these types of capabilities or sims within these devices is, you know, under 30 years old, and data doesn't show that. In fact, it shows that the average gamer is 37 years old, that the fastest growing market is 50 to 60 years old. That doesn't mean you're out running playing World of Warcraft. What it means is that these are people playing online simulations and are utilizing a variety of different sims, and that's the power that we're talking about with mobile learning. Here, as again, you also need a faster graphic processor. So if you have a smartphone from, say, 3 years ago, you can do some AR, but it's more of the phones here within the last year and a half. So your iPhone 4, you know, your latest with the Android operating system of about 3.0, because they have a higher processor speed. BlackBerry OS 7, which hasn't come out yet, or slowly coming out, there is going to be that capability. But for the most part, you really are focusing on the Android, the iPad 2, and the iPhone. And again, other tablets that have a camera. You have to have the camera. So I can take my iPad out. I don't have a camera. I can do geolocation, some other things. I cannot do true augmented reality where I'm able to look at a place and see all these amazing things that are happening in real time, and it's all because of the software. Chris, next please. So here's a couple of quick AR examples. These are actually apps you can get today. The first one is called Starwalk, and what Starwalk is it's for the iPad too. It's for other iOS devices, and what you do is you take it, you place it up to the sky, and then what it does is, again, I talked about that layer. It overlays where the different stars are. It overlays in terms of information about the moon and the different times. Those stars, it comes with details. It comes with, again, geolocation of map locations. You know, when you look at something like this, and you're thinking about an astronomy class, you know, from an academia standpoint, or of something like that, or social sciences, what a greater capability this is than saying for somebody to read out of a textbook, even if it's digital, and pointing at pictures. There is something that people really want is this interactivity, especially in adults. They always want to know what's in it for me. And that is where this product, Wiki2 World Browser, comes into play. This is the Wikipedia, basically, and it's an app that's available for smartphones. And what it does is, as it says, it shows the tablet, but it's coming out for the iPad too. But what it does, you place it up to an image. In this case, it happens to be just this museum, and automatically a variety of different overlays take place, which includes providing additional information. You could do. They're showing Foursquare there. They're showing some other types of capabilities. You would be able to click and find all this information. And so, you know, if we take a step back and we look at it from an adult learner standpoint and our mobile learning capability, one of the things we have to think about is how do we currently engage our learners from an online learning standpoint. Unless you have fully interactive web-based training courses, which I've seen a lot of them, and I would say close to 30% are not what I consider fully interactive and engaging. They're what I call static. You're just flipping through with pictures, and everybody knows nobody likes to read those things. So you really have to be engaged. And how do we do that? Is this capability of, I would rather walk into a conference room, look at my tablet, and be able to see the product if I'm doing product training, or if I'm doing sales training, or I'm doing whatever type of new employee training, and I'm looking at the screen and all these images are showing up and I'm able to interact by talking and they're responding. But if I looked up there would be nothing there. And this is a great capability of augmented reality in terms of its possibilities. So when we talk about product training, even if we do it as a web-based training course, you will see the product. You can, some people, you can click on the product and it pops up with a little, describing what it is. And then when you're talking about it with being fully interactive and engaging, you can maybe, if it's a product you can use or create, it enables you to build it out. So this is really going to that next evolution. Next page, please. Thank you. One of the biggest players in the augmented reality space, believe it or not, and we'll talk in a second here about retailers, but the biggest player in the space is museums. And it's funny because museums are always cutting money back and doing a variety of things, but here's the unique spin on it. The biggest player from the museum standpoint is outside the United States. I didn't list them here, but the museum in Scotland, Natural Museum in Scotland, has always been very cutting edge. They were the first to do HTML5 only. They were the first to use tablets in an AR space. And one of the things they did was when you walked into the beginning of their presentation, it's an auditorium, and it's completely empty. And they give you a tablet, and they tell everybody just to look down at the tablets. And then a person comes on the stage off to the side, but the people are just looking at the tablets. And what they start seeing is the person's talking about way back hundreds of thousands of years ago with dinosaurs. They're going through a history thing. And what people are seeing on the screen is those images coming to life. So they're seeing a dinosaur come to life and the different type of dinosaurs and going across the auditorium. And they're reliving, say, the history of the Vikings. And they're actually seeing the Viking images, and we're not talking these little 2D experiences where you look at it and go, oh, that's fake. To you, it looks real. And it's all done by the technology. And when you think about that capability, but if you look up, right, there's nothing there. Everything is in the tablet dealing with augmented reality. And what they see is a big increase in people utilizing that and enjoying the experience much more so than a slide presentation or somebody talking and you've seen those images and you think to yourself, is this the best they can do? This is its new capability. And when you look at it from a corporate, and when I say corporate, I'm talking nonprofit association, for-profit in there, and even in academia, and of course academia, you have unlimited possibilities. Wouldn't it be better to have a tablet in your classroom and you're talking about the Civil War and you're trying to explain battles and how that took place, and somebody could look inside the tablet at your location. It could be outside in the grass, and they're looking, and now you're reliving Pickett's charge, and they're seeing it as though they were there. That is the capability of augmented reality, and it's interesting is that's not 5 years away. We'll talk here in a second about some of that technology available today. The Museum of London has an app. It's called Street Museum, and basically this is an app where you go to the street in various parts of London. It doesn't include all of London, and you're looking at what it is today. And when you put up your smartphone, it shows you what it was like 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 150 years ago. So if you go to a place there's nothing there and there perhaps was a building, you look in your phone, it's showing you the building. And it gives you history about that. Again, augmented reality. And there's other products like that today. What's interesting about the Netherlands Architectural Institute, and it's their UAR app, is it also deals with virtual buildings. You can only see it right now in Rotterdam and Amsterdam, but it's the same premise. You walk around with their phone, with your smartphone. It only uses smartphones right now, and you walk around and you're looking at present day. You're seeing what as anybody would see, but when you're looking through the phone, you're now seeing what it was like back during that time frame, and theirs goes back several hundred years and even goes to the current. The museum up in Sydney does something similar, but theirs is what I call a hybrid of augmented reality. They're actually taking images from Flickr and they're superimposing them on the image of what you're currently seeing. These other two, the images appear as though it is actually standing in that building space. So to you, it doesn't look like, oh, this is something they pulled off of Flickr somewhere and just imposed, and boy, it looks like a photograph I'm standing here looking at. And one of the things, if you haven't, we'll talk about the Berlin Wall here in a second, is I don't know if you saw dealing with the Twin Towers. Somebody was able to create an augmented reality app for the Twin Towers. So you look through your smartphone or tablet, and where the towers once stood, you now see the towers. And that's just something new, and somebody developed it. And it's actually, in the case of what this person did, was they created 2 wireframes of the towers. It was a wireframe. Yeah, he made it out of some stuff he had, and then he photographed it. He took the image, and then he was able to, using his software, create it as a virtual image. The Berlin Wall is actually very interesting. It's an app. It was created. It's not fully, it's not live. It's in a demo stage. And what it is, of course, the Berlin Wall is not there today. But what this does is the same thing. You look through your phone and what would be your iPad 2 or other tablets that have a camera, and you're seeing the Berlin Wall right there in front of you. And of course, it's not there anymore, and there's people walking by, so it's not like it's a photograph. There are people walking by just as, if you and your friends were walking by and I was taking a picture of you, what I'm seeing in the background is no longer a subway station. I'm seeing the Berlin Wall. And I'm seeing different pieces of the Berlin Wall as it's visible at that present place. And everywhere I move my phone, wherever the Berlin Wall was, it's back again. So again, it's using that capability of learning where today you couldn't explain to somebody who's even 20 years old, and I know some adults even 40 years old that don't really understand the Berlin Wall unless you live there or experienced it during that time frame. So here's an opportunity to show that capability. And then when we think about it from an augmented reality standpoint of corporate learning, one of the biggest things people have to go through, managers, is sexual harassment training. And even when you have an interactive web-based course where you can ask questions and the people respond back, that's very interactive. A lot are just text-based. You're missing out on that. What is real-world experience like, and how would I deal with that? With augmented reality, you can really get a true assessment of what's taking place because you would be able to create those images. And again, to them, it looks like they're dealing in real time, real space. And I want to make a clarification before I flip over and talk a little bit about seeing the Berlin Wall capability, is that this is not virtual learning. This is not a virtual world. And there are people who think that's what it is. Augmented reality is separate from a virtual world or 3D world like Second Life and some of these other things, or some of these other types of presentations that are out there. And there's meeting rooms that are virtual. That is not the same thing as augmented reality. In fact, it's interesting is that augmented reality, the term was coined in 1990, so it's not a term that was coined in the last few years. Chris, the next slide, please. So here's an example. I was talking, you can ignore the YouTube link there. This is an example of the augmented reality app that is being developed for the Berlin Wall. And again, it looks quite realistic. It's an app that's being taken through an image of a smartphone. But, so when we're talking about augmented reality capabilities, we're not talking of these translucent things that you're seeing with Layer and some of these other products. This is an example of full power of augmented reality. And again, if somebody was to stand right in front of that, they would actually walk right through that because, of course, it's just visual of what you're seeing on your tablet or smartphone. It's really not there. And again, it's just going back to its capabilities. You could eventually develop an overlay that identifies the different buildings and locations. When you're talking about sales training, you can have a sales training session, again, using a tablet, and as simple as you walking into your conference room. That conference room can disappear and can be anything that you think of. So, if you really want to get a sense on whether or not somebody can handle, point of sales training, rather than sticking them into a live environment, you can stick them into an augmented reality environment and have them interact and experience what it's like in the live environment before sort of throwing them to the wolves. So it really takes this next stage of learning to its capabilities. Next slide, please. This is kind of a unique, this is actually available today in the iPad 2. It may be available for the Galaxy tablet. It's called Junio. It's in what's called an augmented reality browser. And the Wikitude was a similar AR browser. Well, in this one, you're actually looking through your tablet. And what you're seeing is all these images pop up in overlays. And the ones that include is information about the location. It's, again, utilizing geolocation. And you can go through and see each one of these pieces. So if this person was to put their finger on, the image at the bottom, that image would show up and sort of talk about, in this case, it's telling you, what products are for sale in that area, where's the nearest restaurants. It would be able to put in any type of graphical information. It could do information, historical information. You name it, it can be placed in there. You can actually put characters in that capability, so you would have this interactive experience for geolocation. And before we move forward to the next slide, one of the greatest examples of AR capabilities took place at Disney World. And this happened about a year and a half ago. And what they did was they had a select group of children, and don't ask me how they picked them. But they had a select group of children, and they walked in, and they gave every one of them a tablet. It was an iPad. And they told them to walk around. They closed the park down, and they told them to walk around. They were doing a scavenger hunt. Well, the items they were looking for weren't really there, but they had to use the tablets, and as they're walking around, these images showed up, and these interactive characters showed up and communicated with them. And it was all augmented reality. There was nothing there. And they had to get the item and then go to another place and go to another place, all over the park. Again, everything was augmented. There was no virtual there was no Mickey Mouse standing there talking to them and handing them what they needed for their scavenger hunt. And they had to ask questions. There was none of that. It would be like you talking to the door. So there wasn't Mickey Mouse standing there. And there are solutions that do that today, and we'll talk here in a second about one that's being created by MIT for education, which is actually out. It's called Environmental Detectives. Next slide, please. This is one of the hot products for the iPad 2. It's an app. You can download it. It's called Magic Mirror. And it's exactly what it is. The person places the tablet up to the other person. You see some different hair. That's actually the link that will show it on YouTube. And what it does is it's a boom possibility for retailers, but it's also a boom possibility for learning. Because the way the app works is you place it up to anybody and you can select different glasses, different looks, design, dress, everything, and what you're seeing is that. But in reality, in the case of this person, this is them just dressed up that way. So they can have all different clothing time period. They can have different looks. So you can really see the capabilities from a retail standpoint of if I wanted to be able to test out these glasses rather than me having to go to the store and look at 50 pairs. I just pick and choose what I want, and I can see it on my face in real time, virtually in augmented reality. And the same thing takes place here if you're looking at the background. This background is as it is, but you can also then place this person in any type of situation that you have for training and have them look different in terms of, when we talk about harassment, and I get back to sexual harassment because I remember as a manager, I understood what was taking place, but there were plenty of managers who really couldn't understand it because they weren't in that situation. They weren't a female, they were a male, so they couldn't really relate to it. But here, with this type of solution, they now become the person that will deal with the sexual harassment or deals with gender harassment or deals with workplace issues, ethnicity, they become that person. So, think about it from that perspective of what kind of impact and empowerment they can have, so somebody truly feels what it's like to be that person in terms of look or dress or color or whatever it might be, or sexual orientation. So they get a true sense of really dealing with that workplace harassment. And when you talk about, and you have managers or executives and you're constantly from an HR standpoint writing these people up, and you tell them to go to these training sessions, and it doesn't do anything because they don't really get a true sense of what it's like. They're reading a document, they're looking at a course, they're flipping it through. They don't know what it's really like to be that. And now you can with augmented reality with this type of a product. So it's called Mirror Magic. Right now it just does these kind of changing your look, hair, you can put funny glasses on. It's a great YouTube video to take a look at, and it's a live product. It's available today for download on the iTunes store. Next slide, please. These are two screens that are currently available that are a product solution. The first one off to your right is sort of what's using the Layer technology. Layer is an app. It's been out for a couple of years. It's for iOS, Android operating system as well. And in it, it's using geolocation. So what you're seeing here is in the background, I think it's Pegasus or something with the stars. Of course, it's not really there, but you could get a sense of what it looks like. It has information of a restaurant that's close by. Here's its rating systems. Here's what people think of it. So before you kind of go in there, you already know. The other possibilities it has is ones that have Twitter or Facebook, and you can actually see in real time people typing in their tweets and seeing that. Now, when you think about it from a social learning standpoint, what kind of capabilities you have? You're creating these social learning tools, whether you build them yourself or you have an LMS that already has them in there. And what kind of real interactivity you're getting? I would like to have something where I could walk around the office. Perhaps I'm a new employee. I'm trying to get my bearings set. And with the software, people are using the solution to tweet or whatever it might be, and it's popping up all over the cubes. So, I could be typing in there or just asking it by audio, how do I get to building 4? And something would pop up, and I would go this way. The other thing is on their tablet, they actually see a map on how to get there. So they're no longer stumbling around. It's the same capabilities if you're an AR or when you're trying to do subject matter experts. Many of us do what's called on-the-job training, which, whether you think it works, personally, I don't think it works, and I've been an executive in about 9 different vertical markets, and I've never seen it effective. Because what happens is you assign the person to a very productive employee, that employee gets going on a lot of things, that person just kind of sits there, or you get an employee who may be a great employee, and on that day they were mad at you, so they're cursing you. And now you have a new employee that's involved with that. And so with augmented reality, with something like Layer, you can change all that and give them a new learning experience without having to stick them into, because we've all been in this situation being hired, right? You go into a room, somebody pops a video, and they leave. Realistically, how much time are you actually looking at that video? I know myself, I rarely did. I was thinking about how the rest of the day was going. So here you're really putting in this interactive learning experience for a new employee, as well as even your own social learning experience of allocating that time. If you think about it from a retail standpoint, what kind of possibilities do you have when they have some downtime? We'd all like to say that we have customers happening all over the place, but in truth, that's not the case. And so it offers a new possibility for you, because not only do you have information, let's say we're at a retail store, information pops up about the different products that are available in the store. They can click, they can get more information, they can talk into the device, and there's already audio to output to them. They can get insight on what works, what's successful based on feedback from other employees that are in there. They can also then click on the item and it can show up and do sort of a 3D perspective. There's enormous capabilities with it that's learning in a retail, and that means fast food, whatever retail. It has enormous capabilities, which today you don't have. The time has always been an issue with training, and so this really takes it to that next level. The item on the left is available today. It's an app for the iPad 2. An OS, and what people like about it is it's using not just geolocation, it's using longitude and latitude. It's great if you're doing hiking or adventure, and no one likes to ever get lost. So it's again showing from a perspective of just what's out there in the space. And when I was talking before about retail, there are apps available, and it's a huge booming business. And one of the apps, it's not retail, but I found it very interesting. I learned about it last night. And think about it from a business standpoint. I'll tell you how it works. You place your phone or app, a tablet, up to something that's in another language. Right now it's only available for Spanish to English, and you don't know what that says. It automatically translates it into English. So, if it's telling you, perro, which is dog, it would come up and say dog. Let's say perro was on a green, billboard. It would now show it as dog. So it doesn't just come out with the text. It actually superimposes that wording to English and English to Spanish. And again, it shows enormous possibilities from a business standpoint and even from an academia standpoint, where when you're trying to teach students or collegiate students a language, and there is difficulty for doing that. Now they could take this app, go to a variety of different places, and superimpose and see what the language actually is to learn it. And then from a global standpoint, it opens up really this mobility with your employees and their capabilities of learning a new language by understanding that. So, it offers, I think, some real power for that layering of images. Next screen, please. This is another app. It's available today. You could go to the iTunes store and download it. It's called Crosshair. It is a smartphone app, and what it does is you see a Crosshair apps, and what does that mean? Well, what it does is you place your smartphone up to a location, and right now a lot of these are being developed for retail, but here you can see it. It will come up with what type of restaurants available, nearest tweets, nearest wiki. So you could click on things, and the building would give you wiki information. The tweets would pop up, and these are people in real time tweeting. It comes up all over the place. You see the apps to the right. Those are apps that are in the augmented reality. So you would be able to have maps. You would be able to do just, any type of variety of location and capabilities that is there. Again, from a learning standpoint, we're in an infant stage. There are some out there, but for the most part, right now it's dealing with retail or dealing with some types of gaming, and there's a lot of prototypes that are available for viewing that are getting there. But Crosshair is available. When I was talking about education, I talked briefly about MIT. And what MIT did is it's called MidStar, and it is for education. The app was available as sort of a beta. I believe it's off the market as they're continuing to develop it. But it was called Environmental Detectives, and its premise is pretty clever. Within there, it's an augmented reality. They walk around, and they have to, what they see is they see characters on their screen, and they talk to the characters in real time in audio, and they have to ask them questions, and they have to find out it's talking about a toxic spill, and they have to ask what's taking place, and they have to jot this down. So they become a detective in this environmental spill, and the people they're communicating to that look like people are not there. But they're talking in real time, and they're responding in real time. And so what you have is this augmented reality experience with adaptive learning, which we all know is considered the holy grail of learning. And so it's taking place. Now, obviously, within the app, they've developed 3 or 4 responses for that, but it has unlimited, and from that information they have to sort of decipher how this took place, what was involved, the whole timeline, everything. And now you have this engaging interactive experience rather than what is today, me watching a video, or whether it's on the internet or on television, maybe me reading a book, maybe me going through steps dealing with emergency. How many of us do emergency training in terms of first aid, or out here in California dealing with earthquakes or whatever it might be? We sort of just go through these drills and nobody really fully gets it. Here, everything changes because you bring in the experience to them for there. Next screen, please. This one is pretty interesting. This is just showing an example of augmented reality capabilities. No, it's not live. You can't go get it. But what it's showing is a child utilizing with toys. And so what they're able to do is, of course, that's not really there. They're using glasses, but we're talking that would not be needed with the tablets. And so what is happening is somebody's actually looking at them. And so all these toys and everything else, they're not real. But the person would be able to select these things and have this fully engaging experience. And that is, the strength of augmented reality in terms of its possibilities. And that's why, you would be asking, well, can I do this today? The answer is yes. There's SDK kits out there for people that know what that is to build these apps. There are app sites out there that will actually the apps are semi-built, and you pay a fee and they build the apps for you for augmented reality. So there are places that can go, and you're seeing more and more of it. But here's the spin, is when we talk about it from an online learning experience and you have these vendors, they're not touching it. There are very few touching it, and they're saying more in terms of this nonlinear experience and social learning and mobile learning, but they're not really harnessing the emerging technology. And part of that is, we talk from a blended learning experience where people say about that, and you have this instructor-led training approach. Augmented reality, if you do not want to get off, and you're 70% instructor-led training, or 80%, or 50-50, and you just do not want to get rid of instructor-led training, augmented reality can change that for you, because people no longer, one of the biggest complaints everybody has with instructor-led training is getting to that location. And webinars only do so much. People like face-to-face. But here with augmented reality, in a sense, it's face-to-face. Because what you have in any type of training when you're in a classroom is, we would live in fantasy land if we think all 100% of the people are paying attention to us. They're not. And so here you just have these variety of different capabilities, which is always 1,000 times better than a PowerPoint. PowerPoints can only go so far with people. And if you're an auditory learner, you're not even looking up to the PowerPoint. But with augmented reality, there has to be engagement. There are capabilities for that. Another product that's out, next slide please. The best way I can say to you in terms of getting a true sense about augmented reality, besides me talking about it, is what I call seeing is believing. And what I've done is I've put in 3 links for you to go check out on YouTube. And they open up. And so what these do is, one will take you to the Juno AR browser. That's the top one. That will go to. You have another one that shows the possibilities with one of the apps in showing it the possibilities of that. The third one is something I didn't put on here. It's called Sketch Lab, and it's for the iPad too. It's an app, and what it does is, it's a person, and what he does is he draws around on a piece of paper like a racetrack, and with augmented reality in his device, it now becomes a racetrack. So it's just somebody writing on a piece of paper. You look at it, it's a piece of paper, but now it becomes a racetrack with a car on it. It's all augmented reality. The second link is actually a product called Time Treasure. It's a prototype. It's not live, so don't be looking on the internet wanting to buy this. But it gives you a great power and capability of what is possible with augmented reality. And it really creates what I think is a great example of a sim. It's a gaming sim for all ages. But if you look at it from a learning standpoint, even in the corporate, think of what possibilities are there. And again, it's showing it with interactive characters, mythical characters. You know, one is some dragon right by a building. The dragon's not there in reality, of course. And it just offers unfettered capabilities that you do not have today. And that is, you know, the possibilities of augmented reality. You can do 3D imagery. You can do overlays. Again, here's an example. This is layered down below, which is a form of the augmented reality, which is showing you about the opera, you know, different locations. It's, again, the key here is using geolocation. The question you have is, what happens if I don't want to use geolocation? Well, it's built into the AR capability. So, you know, they have to gain that experience. Otherwise, how would they know they're standing in a room or standing in somewhere? Because that enhances it. But do you need a green screen? No. Not one of these things is using a green screen, so that's not an issue. So those are the sort of possibilities we have with augmented reality and mobile learning. And, you know, we're
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
reality. Augmented reality is the big buzzword now. You know, at one time it was the virtual worlds. That's died off. And I think what you're going to be seeing within the next 2 years in the e-learning experience are people creating apps for augmented reality. Not so much from a authoring tool space, but just apps in general specifically deal with mobile learning, including some AR learning platforms that will come in by some type of companies. And could you do this and have some type of an experience within a learning management system? I believe you can. The commercial systems, not. It would have to be something you develop. But I think the commercial systems have that.
Welcome to GoToWebinar, Web Events Made Easy.
So if you're interested in contacting me about some additional information on the topic, of course, is my name. My business email, that's Skype, by the way, diegos.studiocity. My phone number, eLearnInfo is my main site. eLearnInfo247.com is the blog. And if you want to read, I did a post last year talking about augmented reality and mobile learning. You can click that link and it will take you right to the article, which is quite extensive. It talks about a variety of different things beyond just what I spoke about, obviously, and really kind of covers an extensive thing about augmented reality and, you know, the gains of it and the possibilities. So those are three kinds of things. I do know that this recording will be available as soon as it's completed, and I am open to any questions you might have and refer it back to Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. So what we're going to do now is a little Q&A. Those of you who have been asking some questions, the PowerPoint deck and the recording of this, as Craig said, will be made available. We'll be sending an email out later today or tomorrow with links to those things. But Craig, if you would like to go into the questions panel, and we'll go for about 10 minutes until the hour, answering some of these questions, and I'll let Craig go from there.
Okay, let me kind of slide down here. The links will work, access to slides. The cost of AR products. You know, the apps that you can download run about 99 cents to, I think, $2.99 that you can grab. It just depends. I'm not sure about the Android store. I'm biased, I admit. I have iPad and iPhone. But to create such things today, you know, you're talking, if you build from scratch with the technology that's available, and want to have a decent one, you're talking, a few $1,000s. You can build something on the, the lower side. What's nice is Layer has a capability where it's available. The Layer SDK is available. I can't recall the pricing. It's not high. And then from that, they help you build the layer that you can use on your products today, your training today. So it's called Layer, Layar is the product, the company, and they do have an SDK, and they do offer pricing to help develop a layer, which is what we saw, one of those capabilities for an interface. And again, it's not where you would be building your own, per se, capabilities for that. So I hope that sort of answered your question. I do think that the pricing will go down. It's like anything else. Anything brand new and exciting always costs a lot of money, but there are places that have them. If you want to download the apps, they're inexpensive. As a matter of fact, I think Layer's free, to be honest with you, no charge. And Wicked 2, most of them are no charge, but the ones that charge tend to be in that $99 to $299 range. Some sites for more information about AR can be used in education. There are quite a few sites out there for that. Now, if you want to email me, I can send you a link rather than just saying it verbally to you. And again, it's a whole new experience from the education standpoint, but I'll send you the link as well to what's taking place with MIT, because it's very interesting. There's another project, which I did not post in here, an education project being involved with 3 different organizations, and it is creating an extensive AR experience, and you can do it, and you can see the progress as it's happening. With that, they have a blog. It's pretty interesting stuff. And what's also nice about augmented reality is, when we talk about an infrastructure standpoint, once these are taking place, let's say you use the Layer SDK as an example, the argument of that is using tablets in the corporate space we're seeing is changing in education. There are places that are already going all to the iPad too. So these are all possibilities that are going to occur. Software to use. Again, there's no true software sort of, when we think about like the authoring tools or something out there, I can just grab off the store and build this. You have to use software development kits, which is what SDK is, and again, find augmented reality companies doing it. If you don't want to use Layer AR, there are augmented reality firms out there today that this is their business. I can't tell you the pricing, but they would do that, and they have the capabilities. But there's nothing off the shelf that you can grab that enables you to build augmented reality besides the software development kits at this point. So there's no other real open source for you to build AR. One of the things is like, and you can find it on YouTube, is the guy with the Twin Towers. It's pretty interesting, and it was funny because somebody said, well, how come I can't see the Twin Towers in St. Louis? Because it's geolocation, right? We have to have geolocation, and where's the towers? It's New York City. So you would be looking specifically at where the towers once were using your phone or tablet, and then they appear. If you're in St. Louis, they were never there to begin with, and because it uses geolocation, it's enabling you to be at that specific location. So, that's something to think about. Again, for the person that was asking about developing an AR product, info on doing that for learning, take a look at my blog, which talks briefly about the mobile learning and augmented reality, and talks as well, and I'll be able to send sites to you regarding learning and education in terms of a much greater capability. It's very new, and but it is a growing of interest for augmented reality. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I would say 40% of my tweets deal with augmented reality now and emerging technology, and they include ones for education and learning. And I'm Diego in Studio on Twitter. So that would be a place to kind of go through. You can obviously use the search engines. Besides Google, use Bing and use something called Search-A-Lot or Dogpile. People seem to be stuck on Google, but there's other ones that offer enormous capabilities. Higher Ed has covered it briefly, but there are sites specifically for mobile, augmented reality. But just don't assume that those sites are going to tell you like how to build it. They're more informational at this point. Adobe CS5 will not work with creating augmented reality. Again, it's specific software related only to that solution. And besides the companies that are doing it, the SDKs are the way, because an SDK is specific for mobile devices. The thing is, you have to put it on a mobile device and it has to have a camera. So if this is something you're thinking about and you don't have mobile devices, then it's worthless. This is not something you create and stick on your your computer. That's not what augmented reality is for phones, any type of mobile device. I mentioned phones, smartphones, the tablets, and eventually PGPs, which are portable game players. For the links, I tested them. You just need to copy and paste them through there. If it doesn't come up, I just tested them before I came online here to make sure they're working. Is you actually have to kind of right-click to open it up. But if it's not working, just send me the link and I'll verify and find you the right link. But they were working at an hour ago before I popped on here. And were tested on the PowerPoint. The best way to get involved with AR is, start reading everything you can really about augmented reality development. Don't be looking for augmented reality from an education or type in. You want to look for augmented reality development. Definitely learn the SDKs for your mobile device. And seek out in terms of finding that information. There are sites 100% dedicated to augmented reality and people that are focused on that. Again, they're looking more of it from a business standpoint than a learning standpoint, but they would enable to tie you towards development kits. But this is not something like Adobe Flash. You can't build augmented reality with Adobe Flash. You can't build it with CS5. You cannot build it with, of course, any of the authoring tools as of today. You cannot build it with, the HTML because it doesn't use that content. So, and somebody who has, you can't go to somebody and say, well, you have C++ programming. I want you to build me one. It doesn't work that way. So, but there are places for that.